Hello and welcome to Faith and Lit, a podcast exploring the intersection of books and belief. I'm your hostess with the mostest, Xandra Carroll. Our current series is Talking Tolkien, and I'm joined again by Kasey Leander and Dr. Simon Barry. This week we are continuing our discussion on Tolkien's creativity. Let's dive right in.
I think it's significant that a lot of the time it is specifically song that Tolkien celebrates. There are types of music that are appreciated as well, but most of the really important stuff is a song. It's song when Felagund battles Sauron. It's the songs of Gildor and Glorian that drive away the Nazgul. It's song, of course, that Sam sings. Because in song, music is matched with the word. And it brings together, I think, that music, which for us as human beings is normally I hesitate to use the term emotional, but perhaps affective. It's not an entirely rational thing, how we engage with music. It speaks to the heart. And song and words, which partake of the mind. And so it brings together truth and feeling, heart and mind. And I think that's part of the power of it. It's part of the power of song, I would say, that it can take the beauty of a truth and set it and enhance it and empower it and put it in synergy with the beauty of a tune to have something that is stronger than either. That's what the best songs are, I think, is where the music and the words match so perfectly.
Right.
And it speaks to that sense that perhaps the two great powers of creativity in Tolkien are music and the word. And in song, the two join together in harmony.
A bit of a tangent here, but I think that makes the cinematic versions of The Lord of the Rings, it's one of the reasons why they're absolutely one of the masterpieces of filmmaking of all time, truly. Because Philippa Boyens and Howard Shore, in the musical score of The Lord of the Rings, understood this about Tolkien, and into the score they wove all of his linguistic elements. And so there's actually a website that I love frequenting anytime I watch those movies. It's called Tolkien's Language in the Lord of the Rings soundtrack, compiled by a Polish scholar named, and I'm not going to get his name right because he's Polish, Ryszard Dzerzhinsky is as close as I can get. But Dzerzhinsky is compiling all of the Sindarin and the Kenya and the Dwarvish elements that Tolkien's written and showing us where in the score those are incorporated. So like when they pass those two massive statues of the kings, the Argonath, in the Fellowship of the Ring, they're going down the Great River and they look up and there's two massive statues of the king. At that moment, the choir is singing Elendil's original prophecy that he said when he says, "Out of the great sea to Middle Earth I come. In this place I will abide, and my heirs unto the ending of the world." But the choir is singing that in Sindarin. It's unbelievable when you start to unpack what they were able to do in this movie. And by the way, that's the same song that Aragorn sings at his coronation in Return of the King. So when he turns around and he's been crowned by Gandalf and all is made right, that song that he gets, Viggo Mortensen gets an incredible solo moment there. Those are the words he's singing in Elvish. And that stuff is layered throughout all of the films. And it's one of the reasons I think they have to be one of the most masterful adaptations of literature ever produced. There I stand. I can never take that opinion back. I'll die on that hill. So
I think one of the things the films grasped very well was that music is a great way to tell what you cannot show in cinema. One of the things books can do much better than films is portray the unseen or the unseeable. And especially if you're dealing with a fantasy universe where there's a lot of the numinous, that's really hard to depict on screen. And the films are very good at capturing that with the music. That sense of wonder in Lothlorien that is not just about the beauty of the place, but sense there's more than just beauty here. There's the goodness that is supposed to go with beauty. Or the sense of unease with the Nazgul. The music is very good at capturing that. And it's very good at capturing the way in which characters interact. Perhaps my favourite example is when Aragorn at the end of the first film is being tempted by the ring as Frodo holds it out to him. And as Aragorn looks at it, the ring theme plays, and then the Aniron plays, which is the Aragorn and Arwen theme. And the last time that played was when he was doubting his destiny, and Arwen was saying to him, "You will face the same evil as Isildur, and you will defeat it." That evil being the ring temptation. And Arwen's theme overpowers the ring theme as Aragorn rejects the temptation of the ring. And you could have had a whole clumsy flashback there, but you did it with music, because music is weaving together the things that you can't say explicitly and doing it very well. I'm conscious we've wandered a little bit off track here into cinematography instead of literature.
No, but I do think it's connected. And Tolkien's understanding of just the truth and the rawness of reality. I mean, last week we were talking about his experiences in the war and the struggles that he had and how that really did influence his literature. And actually, you said it really well, if I could quote you, Simon. You said that for Tolkien, the roots of creativity are planted in the soil of reality. And I love that, because I think a lot of times we think that true imagination is a complete exit from reality. But I'm just wondering if you'd care to touch on that a bit more.
Surely. We talked about this a little bit, I think, the previous time, but there's a sense in this idea of applicability, or elsewhere Tolkien uses the musical metaphor and speaks of resonance, that good stories are those that resonate with deeper truth. And therefore, a good fictional story is one that echoes how things happen in our world. And a good, what he would call a fairy story, is one which echoes the deepest truths of reality and of our nature. And I think we're going to talk about this more later on, that for Tolkien, one of the tests of for Tolkien, there was a reason why we like the kind of stories that we like. And that's because they speak to something that we know should be and isn't always there in our reality. We like the stories of where justice is done, evil is defeated at the last moment, the plucky hero comes through, and the end state of things is better than the beginning, because that's a hunger of our nature that is not satisfied in reality, and yet we feel that it should be. And fairy stories are those which answer that thirst and hunger. And Tolkien would argue they're those which echo and resonate with the great story of creation, if you like. They're stories which echo with the music of the Ainur and his own image, because they echo what will be the story of the world when it is over, which for Tolkien, he very much believed would be a story of the ultimate defeat of evil, the redemption of what is broken, the mending of wrongs, and the restoration of a better state in the end. So there's roots. The tree of creativity has its roots going into metaphysical reality there. That stories can encapsulate that which we long for and hope one day to see, that which, as a Christian, he believed was the fundamental reality of the world. We talked about this last time again with the stars as a reminder that good is the fundamental truth here. The good of the Creator is the fundamental truth of the universe. And therefore the creation echoes that truth. And therefore our creation, our sub-creation, like our literature, is to echo that truth as well, is to capture and put forward the fact that at the end of the day there is a wise, benevolent and powerful Creator and a happy ending. I mean, there's a lot else we could say about that idea of roots going into reality, because I think this applicability that we spoke about at the start is another side of that. The idea that what happens in your stories should be applicable to real life situations, because it's echoing, resonating, it's crystallizing out in a more visible form the way things do work in our world. Grasp power and you're liable to find yourself a slave. Give power away and you might well find that that's where you win the victory. The little people are so often the ones it hinges on in the end, not the big visible heroes in the limelight. All these truths, which take a very physical form in Tolkien's writing, I think are more hidden and more dissipated and more swathed in shadows and shades of grey, but they are there as truths in our world and in our reality as well. And Tolkien tries to draw them up and draw them out.
Thank you for sharing that. Sorry, my light keeps turning off. If I don't move, it goes off again. So.
Oh, the struggle's real.
That's why I'm sitting in the dark.
Those RCIM lights. I didn't even notice, so maybe the audience won't hear.
It's adding to my creativity, you know, dark and moody.
It's broody, yeah.
Broody.
Simon, one of the questions that I'm really curious to ask you has to do with sort of the creative power and the delegated power of creativity to lesser beings in Tolkien's world. And one question, just like a lore question that's puzzled me for a long time, is on what basis can Isildur, remember there's the dead men of Dunharrow who come to the rescue in the big climactic battle of Pelennor Fields, and they've been cursed by Isildur. On what basis does Isildur's cursing of these men carry any weight that they would literally become sort of in an undead state while he's cursed them? I've wondered different interpretations of this. One thing I've wondered is maybe Isildur was in possession of the ring when he did this, and the ring's power sort of enforced that. You know, the ring does things like binding, finding, and ruling. So perhaps, while Isildur possessed the ring, he cursed them. Or maybe there's something deeper that I'm missing, where there's sort of a creative power that is delegated to lesser beings. Or maybe it's nothing, it's just a mystery, and I need to stop thinking too hard about it. But either way, I'd love your take on that question.
Yes, of course, the crime occurred that the men would not march out and fight with Isildur against Mordor, against Sauron. And he cursed them after he returned. Well, I beg your pardon, he cursed the fates to befall them when he returned victorious. So it does seem that it was before he held the ring in any way. In any case, the ring by itself should not have been enough to change the fates of men after death. What seems to be going on here, and I'm not sure that the issue actually is creativity so much as it is hierarchy. In Tolkien's universe, power is very much hierarchical, and Isildur is the king of men, or one of the kings of men. And so I think it is his authority as the true king, the true representative, the true leader of men, gives him a degree of authority over their fate. It's a bit of an anomaly in Tolkien. We don't see anything like it anywhere else, but I think it speaks to his sense of just how important the office of kingship is, that the king stands for the people, and what the king decides binds the people, and what happens to the king affects the people. Isildur's fall brings down his kingdom fairly quickly, and that's an idea that's found as well in real world history, shall we say, and also I think quite an important one in Christian theology when it comes to understanding what it means for Christ to be the king. But that's definitely a discussion for another time. So I don't think it's delegated creativity so much as it is delegated authority in Isildur's case.
I guess in my mind, I looped it under that heading. That's a great answer, by the way. I put it in that heading of creativity very loosely, obviously, but in the sense that his words created actually a reality that wouldn't have necessarily existed had he not spoken that curse over those men. So that's it. That's my one question. And with that, I stand content on this episode. But yeah, I've loved being a part of this and excellent answers, Simon. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Simon, for taking the time. And any closing remarks before we close out this episode?
There's actually one interesting thing, I think, just to say one thing further about creativity, which is that when a creative being, which is really any being, departs from the conductor's music, as happens with Melkor and with Sauron and with the other evil powers, you see something very interesting, which is that they become creatively sterile. Frodo says evil cannot create, only destroy or distort. And Melkor cannot create new things the way the Everynir can. He can only take those things and twist them. So evil is creatively sterile, partly because it's out of touch with the source of creativity, and partly because evil is incursus in se, it's self-obsessed, and therefore it doesn't enable you to create something other than yourself. But there's another level to this, because what we sometimes see is misguided creativity when it is dedicated, when it is given back to the ultimate creator, to God, becomes capable of things that would otherwise not have been possible at all. So the great example of this in the Silmarillion is Arle, the angel who creates the dwarves. And he makes them because he really likes the elves and men that every Iluvatar, God, has made. And he makes them, and God appears to him and says, "What have you done?" Xandra for the sound effects.
I'm
Is
so
that what he
sorry.
says?
I
Oh
thought
my
I was
goodness.
muted, and I just full
What
on
an
sneeze.
incredible
I didn't
thing
try
this-
to hold it in at all. I just let it go full into my microphone. I'm going to mute now. Simon, would you like to continue that beautiful thought? I'll
That
just be
wasn't
over
beautiful.
here.
So without the sound of distant thunder, what he says is, what have you done? You have from me your own being and no other. You cannot make beings with their own will. You've made the physical bodies of these dwarves, but they will move when you tell them to move, and then they'll be still. That's all you can do. You have presumed too far. You have gone beyond what you have a right to create. And Arle answers and says, sorry, yes, I have. I admit it. I just wanted to be like you. As a child to his father, I offer to thee these things, the works of the hands which thou hast made. Do with them what thou wilt. But should I not rather destroy the work of my presumption? Then Arle took up a great hammer to smite the dwarves, and he wept. But Iluvatar had compassion upon Arle and his desire, because of his humility. And the dwarves shrank from the hammer and were afraid, and bowed down their heads, and begged for mercy. And the voice of Iluvatar said to Arle, Thy offer I accepted, even as it was made. Dost thou not see that these things have now a life of their own, and speak with their own voices? Else they would not have flinched from thy blow, nor from any command of thy will. And so the dwarves become a third independent race. The thing that Arle could not do of his own, when he dedicates his creation to the Creator makes possible. And I think that echoes with Nigel, where we started off as well. The tiny inadequate little painting of the leaf, when it is given back, is turned into the full painting of the tree that can be a blessing. So because creativity is delegated, when creativity becomes rebellion, it is sterile. But when it is dedicated and devoted and given back over, it becomes more fruitful than the creator could ever have made it on their own. And perhaps that's the real secret of Tolkien's amazing creativity.
That's amazing. We see that reflected in Christian theology as well, where from our roots in a garden, we're destined to end up in a city. So God creates this Edenic setting for human beings, but in the end, he redeems all the things that we've spent our time on the earth creating. And there's a beautiful picture in the book of Revelation about every nation, every tribe, every tongue of people bringing in their creative work into the new Jerusalem, this new city. And so I think that's very well reflected in Tolkien's work. But it's a beautiful aspect to the story of redemption, which Tolkien is really good at.
Well, I, for one, am glad that I just didn't hurt anyone during this episode. Thanks for tuning in to Faith and Lit. Join us next week as I will be taking antihistamines and also muting my microphone. Take care. Keep on reading.